Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Spooky Second Podcast with your host, the Alfred State Paranormal Investigation and Urban Exploration Club. This week, three of our members, JD, the club president, Liz, the vice president, and Molly, the public relations officer, will be talking to our guest, Kaycee Colburn. Kaycee is a paranormal investigator practicing psychic, medium, and a witch. She is also a tour guide for the haunted Hinsdale House. She is working on several different projects. She hosts a podcast and she has connections to many of the popular figures in the paranormal community. JD has spoken to Kaycee about paranormal experiences before, so let us get this show started by talking about Kaycee's most influential paranormal experience. Okay, so Kaycee, what is your most influential paranormal experience that you've had?
It's kind of really hard to just pick one out. There's been so many and they're all special in their own way. I guess the most influential growing up, being psychic, sitting and talking to a grandfather that I could never have possibly have known because he passed away before I was born. That probably has been the most influential because that is kind of what started the whole thing for me. Growing up, my mom's like, no, there's no way that you could have known him or could describe him, but I described him to a T, and I remember him reading me stories and talking to me. I would sit on his lap in his favorite chair, and I suppose what they saw was just me gabbing away, a 3-year-old just talking away, but I knew that was my grandpa and I was talking to him, and so that was probably my most influential.
So have you had the psychic abilities since you were born?
Yeah. Oh yeah. The first ability to surface was to communicate with animals. Just ever since I was really little, I've had the knack for it. Stray dogs, stray cats, wild birds would just come to me. And over the years, it's just, I don't know, the collection of memories has just grown. I've interacted with bears. I worked at a sanctuary for a little bit as a volunteer where I worked with lions, tigers, and bears, and wolves, and fox, and they had everything there. And so it's just, that was the first one. It's pretty special.
So that's pretty interesting that you had psychic connections, or you were able to kind of feel out the animals that you were working with on that job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my youngest memory is when I brought in I was maybe 2, and I was sitting on the kitchen floor with a wren, I guess, sitting in my hand. And I remember turning and telling my mom to shh. I put my finger up to my lips, said shh. And she came over and, saw that I had this bird. It wasn't like I was gripping the bird to death or anything. He was just sitting in my palm. And when he was done, he flew out the window, and that was that, but I talked to him. I remember talking to him, saying, it's okay to come visit with me. And yeah, that was my first animal visitor.
Did a lot of your first paranormal experiences happen within your home?
I've had quite a lot. Personally, in my home today, I kind of bring it on myself because I have haunted objects. So there's that. But yeah, a lot of my experiences do happen just on the daily. It's not just these haunted locations, like the Hinsdale House or the Dunkerclay House or the Winchester House. It's spirit is everywhere. The paranormal is everywhere. I remember when I was young, I was at a Kmart, and I was maybe 11 years old. My ability started to kind of peak, and I ended up having like a panic attack in the middle of Kmart because everybody is like, I don't know if it was like around the holidays, but there was just a lot of people, and everybody's loved ones that had passed on were wanting to talk to me. And that happens quite often to mediums because once spirit knows that you can see them or hear them and interact with them, they come right to you. You're kind of like a magnet for them.
Mm.
And for an 11-year-old girl, that was a lot to handle, in the middle
Really?
of the store. And so I did have a panic attack. I actually blocked my abilities for quite some time.
Mm.
And yeah, then just, I don't know, I guess recent years, like 2016 is when I got into the paranormal field as an investigator. Just a few years before that, I started to reopen and kind of accept and grow my ability. So it's not been a whole a lot of time there, but it's been it's been something else for sure.
You mentioned you have haunted objects, so I'm very curious about.
So with the haunted objects, I have uh, quite the collection. It's small, but still quite the collection. So I have one of those old Jolly chimps. They're one of those antiques that they bang the cymbals. I've got one of those, and it's got an older man attached to it. Just he's just is there like the biggest thing that he's complained about to me is the fact that his kids basically took all of his stuff and just scrapped it like it meant nothing, like he meant nothing. And so that's one of the things with him. And so me putting his object, something of his in a display case and, giving it the respect that he felt like he should have, and honoring his memory in kind of a way. He's very appreciative. So he's quieted it down quite a bit. But I do also have 18th century composite dolls. And it's got a little boy attached to it, and he's a prankster. He has moved things on me. He has put my cat. So I have one of these coffee tables where you can store things inside it. And he put my cat in it and closed the coffee table back up. The cat was not hurt or anything, but again, this is like an 8-year-old boy that I'm dealing with, and so that's very funny. And we were eating dinner at the coffee table, watching TV, and I kept hearing my cat meow, and I'm like, where is she? I searched the whole house, and we were eating above her, so that was quite comical to Spirit, and to this little boy. So the cat is unharmed. Nothing bad has happened to her since, but he does do things like that. Nothing like tripping anybody or hurting anybody. Nothing, anything like that.
So it's not threatening, nothing like Chucky or anything that they try to depict in the movies again.
No, I mean, there are definitely spirits out there that when they are attached to something, they do have more, ill intent with it. But just the spirits that I keep in my house that are attached to these things, I don't bring in anything in that's going to be harmful, But if it does need like honor or respect, I'm very much about giving that to spirit.
Yeah, the thing is, did you get to know the spirit before you bought it instead of like buying it over the internet or
So these were things that were given to me, and if it does have something that is attached to it beforehand, I don't keep it. So I
mm,
find somebody who is experienced in that sort of thing that wants that sort of thing, and I give it to them. I did have a doll who I named Lucy. I actually had her ever since I was little. She was a glass doll, and she was one that would play music. She was not nice. She would do the scratching and that sort of thing. And I ended up giving her to a guy who is a voodoo practitioner, and he works with all that. Like he knows what he's doing. Um, but even with the gentler spirits, I still take precautions. So the tanks I have, they're blessed constantly. I smudge constantly my house, and I have a ring of salt completely around the inside of the display case to help keep them in, and selenite wands that actually divide up each individual object. So there's quite a lot of stuff that goes into just keeping them, maintaining them, and then that way they're not able to cause harm or anything like that. So there's a little bit more to it than just buying something from eBay and then being like, I don't know why my house is haunted. So yep, but it's kind of like a final resting place, a place for them to be remembered, be respected, not just be thrown into a dumpster, that sort of thing.
So, seeing your work at Hinsdale and you're talking about these dolls, are the dolls that are at Hinsdale actually like haunted?
So I don't know if I brought the witch there at that time, but I had picked up a doll from a yard sale, just a cute witch. I like witches. I am a witch. And she was just supposed to be a cute doll. Like, that's all I wanted her for. And she started to show signs of having an attachment. You would feel like something was watching you. You would stare at her, and then as soon as you'd look away, there'd be a loud thud on the wall next door. My EMF detectors and stuff would kind of light up when I approached her without any other like cause, because again, I investigate first, and so I decided to bring her to the house, and Dan was like, yes, absolutely, witch doll, sure, bring her, so I'm like, I'll let the house deal with her. It'll know how to take care of this spirit. And ever since then, I haven't had issues. So she was also causing fights in my home too. So she was causing the mood swings and things like that. So she had to go. My dogs and my cats would back up and growl at her, hiss at her. So she had to go. So that one I know is. The others, I know a couple of the ones with the bees. They got the cracked faces. They freak people out. They're just cute dolls. I don't think they have anything attached to them. I can't really say for the others. The doll in the blue dress, I think maybe I feel something a little bit more gentle with her, though. I don't feel anything like harmful. And the one that's in the display case with all the merch, I believe that one is haunted. And I think she's got a little bit more of a story too with her that's actually on the thing. I haven't read it, but she does have a story with her. So people do just kind of bring us objects though, and just kind of like leave them, and then we have to be like, I don't know where this came from, but I guess we'll put it over here, or we'll hang it on the wall, so that does happen.
Do you do ritualistic cleansings of spaces? Like, how often do you think the sort of energetic cleansing should be done?
So I do, like, I call it like a soft cleanse, where I'll burn, like a blue sage, my sweet grass, which helps bring in positive energy and positive spirits. So that's important too. And then I also use like cedar, Palo Santo, that sort of thing. And then, I make sure I do it the correct way. If I do like a full cleansing, it's, whatever room I'm going to go to last, windows coming open, I start at the farthest, room away from it. And then you make your way through, smudging every corner, every door, every window, you know, the whole thing gets smudged. And that I use the grandmother sage or white sage for that. And then when I get to the last window, I make sure I shut it at the end. For like the selenite and stuff, other than ancestral work and things like that, I don't really do too much with it. The biggest stone that I do work with is hagstones and malachite. Um, and hagstones is just because like I'll be walking along the beach and I'll find like 20 of them, and that's supposed to be something that's rare, but right now I'm like surrounded by like hagstones. So it's just something that very clearly wants to work with me, so I do. And then the malachite is just I was at some fair and I walked up to this vendor and it was just these huge, massive pieces of malachite. And I'm like, I love the energy and I love the color and everything with it. And it's a great protective stone too. So those are the two stones that I work mostly with. But I'm kind of a rock hound, so I've got quite the collection too. So. For my rituals too, like, and it's different for everybody, how everybody practices, but because I have native background too, I'm Seneca Iroquois, so I use a lot of the Seneca medicine too with my practice. So it's like a blend of Wiccan and native combined, so it's very eclectic. And it's not theatrical, so I don't need to use the candles and do like, the crystal ball thing. Like I don't need to do all of that. Um, it's just very earthy, very quick, and it's when it's needed, so I don't do things for like personal gain and stuff. So it's every day, but it's not like for absolutely everything, if that makes sense.
So what all can witches, or witches actually use a crystal ball for?
So the crystal ball, for witchcraft is more for um, like I've got an obsidian ball that would be used to suck in all the negative energy, because that's what obsidian does, is it sucks it all in, absorbs it, and then when I'm done in that area, when I'm done using it for whatever I needed it for, I'll put it back in the earth to let the earth absorb all that back, because you can always give back to the earth. It's not going to hurt the earth to do that, because both positivity and negativity belong to it anyways. But psychics are generally the ones that'll use the crystal balls for like divination purposes, which is just like a form of scrying. So you'll see like scrying mirrors. You could scry on your phone when it's off, so that sort of thing, or a TV that's off. Any reflection that you can't see anything else, you just see that it's reflective. You can scry with it. It started actually with water, bowls of water. People would scry with that too. So that's what the crystal ball is for.
And scrying is just being able to see something that's not like intuitionally.
So it is a form of divination, which is a form, like it's a way to get information, sometimes about the past, sometimes about the present, sometimes about the future. Sometimes it's just spirit communication. So it's whatever that intention is, and what they're wanting to come through. So if they're looking to communicate with the, specific spirit, then a lot of times they'll see the spirit kind of come through with that, they'll see the face or whatever. A lot of the times too, mediums have reported where their face actually like shifted into whatever that spirit's face was that they were talking to. So that is something else that happens. But I believe that has a little bit to do with channeling also. So it's kind of like a two-part thing there.
I have kind of a fun question. Um, since you work at the Hinsdale house, I was wondering if you had a favorite and a least favorite spirit that's at the house.
Um, I mean, I definitely, that's a hard one actually. So I enjoy talking to the man of the house. A lot of people don't, but I get his humor. But he's the one that a lot of people do put the label of being negative on. He's just misunderstood. He is not somebody that I would want to like push or provoke, because he is like Norse god size. Like that's like he's giant. He's got bear paws for hands. Not like that's just the size of his hands. So I would not want to like mess with him. I wouldn't pick a fight. Um, there's not really, he's the main one that talks to me. There's not really a spirit there that I don't like. I don't have an issue with any of them. but he's just the main one that talks to me. So I guess he would be like my favorite. That and the cats that are there, the spirit cats that are there, like I see them all the time. So being an animal lover, I get very distracted when I see them. So
And is the man Mike or is it another spirit?
it's not Mike, no. I believe that it would be a lot of people call him Wilhelm. Um, so I've kind of just nicknamed him because he hasn't told me his name yet. So I've just kind of nicknamed him Hinsdale, but I believe this is who people are seeing and calling Wilhelm. Um, they've had some negative experiences, but I've also got kind of like a different relationship with the house because I do the gardening and stuff for it. You know, I give back. Every time I'm there, I give spirit offering of the sweetgrass, the palo santo, the sage, all of that. So I'm constantly giving back to the house. So I'm not there to just be like, get out here, you know, like a lot of investigators do. And so I have a different perspective of him. You know, he's not scary to me, but it's a respect thing again. You know, like he could be scary, I suppose, if I did do the provoking, but I just don't do that. It's just a common sense thing. Just don't do that. So.
Speaking of gardens, what is the Gardens for Ghosts project that you do?
So Gardens for Ghosts is an interesting thing. It's a way for me to kind of spread positivity throughout all the haunted locations, and I've gone to quite a few for just starting. So I started, I believe it was May, and then ended at the beginning of August. So in that short time, I went to the Hinsdale House, I went to Wildwoods, I went to Madison Seminary, I went to Greystone Manor, Rolling Hills Asylum, the Lizzie Borden House, and the Conjuring House, and so quite a few places. I'm sure I'm probably missing a couple in there. But it started at the Hinsdale House. You know, I was looking at the gardens and I was like, you know, it looks like it needs some TLC. So I started doing it for the house, and then I got talking to Dan, and he's like, you know, this would be kind of a cool idea to go to other locations and do this too, because one, the quarantine and everything had a lot of the, you know, energy levels very low. Everybody was trying to, you know, find ways to make the ends meet, you know, because all this is volunteer based, donation based. And so I made it so that they could have something that would brighten up their day, bring positivity to their location, give them somewhat of a curb appeal. And it's all donation based. So what I do is I ask people, like a GoFundMe type page, and I tell them what I want to do, what the goal is, how big of garden, everything, like how much soil I'm going to need for this, you know, and then we just kind of make it happen. It really manifested quite quickly and in such a smooth transition that it's kind of weird. I don't even know how it really started, except for I put the idea out there and then it just took off. So now I've been to a lot of different locations for that. So, and it's all free to the haunted location. So if you know a haunted location that you would like to see Gardens for Ghosts do a garden for, just let me know.
That is a very original idea. Um,
I would like to someday get kind of like one of those old like Adam's Family style like hearses, you know, and then turn it into a flower car where I use that to transport all the supplies and everything for it, because I think that'd be kind of cool to show up in a hearse at a haunted location to do their garden. So someday.
what was your scariest paranormal encounter, you would say?
Um, so my scariest paranormal encounter, it's a little bit different. But I'll share this one with you. So I do astral projection, and I do a lot of dream work. And I the, because of how everything is, like my mom and my dad are sick, so I check in on them quite frequently, right? And so I was astral projecting to their house, and my mom was in the kitchen. She was making coffee, which is not abnormal for her because she's up all night anyways. So she's got a lot of pain, so it's hard for her to stay still. So she was in the kitchen and she was going to turn around, and I had such a excited feeling. I'm like, she's going to see me. I know she's going to see me, right? And this is never, like, I had never had that type of experience before, so I was like ready for it. And then I was like zapped to another location, and that zapping, like, when I realized what had happened, it like caused such panic. Everything around me felt like the house was on fire type of feeling. And when I started to kind of see what was going on, I realized that I was like in a country that looked similar to like India. And I started helping other spirits and stuff get away from this machine that was like pulling everybody to it. So I'm like, okay, this is getting to be kind of a weird dream. I tried to just lucid dream and get, just change the dream, but that couldn't happen. So I tried to leave on my own, and one of the spirits that were there grabbed me, which isn't supposed to happen. Like, that's not something that happens. And he pulled me down to the ground. He said, wait, before you go, are you on Indian soil? Being Native American, I'm like, I think so, because this is Indian soil to me, And when I woke up, I was in like a huge panic. I woke up just sweating to death. And I told my husband, this man saw me. He's going to be able to find me soon. Like, he saw my face. And within like 3 days, a man from India contacted me, wanted to talk to me about my astral projection experiences, and wanted me to work with him on a machine that forces people to astral project. And like, he started talking to me about astral projection spies and all this stuff, and I'm like, block. No, I'm not helping you. So that was my scariest thing, and that was because it was humans. Humans are the scariest thing on the planet. So yep, that was probably the most intense and the most dramatic like experience that I've had. So pretty wild. I kept all the messages though that he sent me. I screenshotted them.
Who does he like work for? Like in the
I'm not sure. What I did have to do though for this was I actually had to, when I contacted a Hindi shaman who started telling me about how back during the time with the Nazis and stuff, when they were doing a lot of the expositions and stuff into India, they started working on projects. One of the projects being to make an astral army. And that there are still some organizations and stuff that are trying to still work on this type of thing. But they had developed like this person and that I visited, I guess, developed this machine that was just like pulsating. It was really, really loud, like it was screaming. And it was just bringing, probably other astral projectors and spirits into it. And it was just like this huge, like, panic type of scenario. I did also have to have a despojo ceremony performed on me, which is basically where a shaman takes and pulls out all the attachments, and then that way, because oh yeah, the story does get a little bit better, I guess. So the Indian man that's contacted me on Facebook wanting me to work with him on this astral projection thing, he also told me that he was a Hindi like witch, and that he practiced black magic, and so he was trying to kind of like blackmail me into helping him with it. He wanted to understand astral projection more, and so because I was saying no to him, he was getting more upset, trying to threaten me, and so I had this despojo ceremony performed so that there's absolutely no attachments. So it was quite a lot to do, and yeah, definitely scarier. So
I'm just speechless. Like that's amazing.
yeah, it's
It's
definitely,
terrifying.
yeah, it was. I do a lot with astral projection, and I've never had anything like that before. It definitely made me question if I even wanted to continue doing astral projection. But I just took in more precautions, you know, if I'm going to. A lot of the times too, people astral project spontaneously. It's sometimes involuntary, you know. So even as like a person who is like seasoned at it, I still spontaneously do it. And it's just, you know, everybody has this ability to do this. And it's just a knowing when you are, when you aren't type of thing. So, but a lot of times, like you'll hear people say, you know, like they'll have that third body experience, like during a car accident or something. That's astral projecting. You're outside your body. So yeah, that's anybody can kind of do this, and the reports are, you know, numerous. You know, so I have had positive things with it though. So I did do a cool astral projection experiment, and I did that with Buffalo Niagara Paranormal, and they were at a haunted location doing an investigation, and I was at home meditating. We kind of did like a Skype thing, and so they monitored me while they were at this location, and the goal was for me to come through their spirit box with a code word, which was dragon. And I said, if I could do it, I'm going to try to also say it's me, Kay. And we got it. They recorded the whole thing. We've got it. That came through the spirit box, and I actually do have that, I believe, on my website. So if people do want to look at it, the project is called Project Apex. So astral projection experiment. So if you guys are interested, that's up there.
So where did you learn this skill?
It's something that I was able to do ever since being really, really little. My mom, I remember her like yelling at like all of us kids, like get back to bed, and we'd all be like just not really not really there. So she definitely has witnessed at least a couple of us astral projecting, you know, at least hearing us, or, you know, seeing us, sensing us, whatever it be. She definitely knew that we were doing it. And then just lucid dreaming. I mean, that was like, I love dreaming. I record my dreams all the time, and so that's my like my favorite realm, I guess, is the dream realm. And yeah, astral projecting and dream walking for me just come very natural. So
What do you mean by recorded dream?
when, like, if I wake up after having like a really cool dream or something, you know, some sort of significance to it, I'll write it down. So you just document everything that you can about it. That can also help you with lucid dreaming. So if you are looking to learn to do that sort of thing, record it. Just make it so that you remember what happened. You can start to, once you get the hang of doing that, you can learn to like bring objects into your dream, that sort of thing, just by focusing on it. A lot of people will do that without even really trying. Like if you ever, maybe you just were talking about horses, and then, you know, you saw an image of a horse, and then you went to bed, now you're dreaming about horses. You subconsciously brought that into your dream. So, because it was something that you talked about earlier that day. So you do have control of your brain while you sleep.
What do you think of people who have. What do you think of deja vu, actually?
Um, so deja vu is, I think, just kind of there's a couple of things to it. A lot of the times people will go with the whole multiverse type of thing. Um, it could just be because like a past life, or it could be, you know, you remembering something that's so similar that your brain just pieces it together, especially if your days are becoming a little bit more mundane. You know, if like you every day you um, get a cup of coffee. Well, maybe you know, started adding 3 scoops of sugar, and so now you're starting to remember it, but now you're like, I don't know, it's kind of weird how the brain works with that. So you might remember already putting in 3 scoops of sugar, and it's because you actually have done it before. It's sometimes there's such similarities day to day that it can kind of throw you off a little bit. Like, wait, maybe I already took this pill. Maybe I already did this, because I remember doing it. So it I think has a lot to do with the brain.
How long have you been practicing? Like, how long have you been a witch?
I have been a witch ever since I was like maybe 12 or 13. I started getting into crystals. I started wanting to, without using my abilities, learn about them. And, kind of in a safe way. One of my first books it's called The Craft, and I believe it's by Dorothy Morrison. And it was just kind of like, it talks about the different herbs, the different holidays, all this different, how to work with these things. And so it's a book that I definitely appreciate. Um, and yeah, I just kind of started going with it. It's something that really feels like home to me. And so that's why I I'm very confident, with my podcast and stuff. Like, I could talk to other people from other cultures, other religions, and know that it's going to be okay, even if we don't agree on something, because I'm confident in how I believe and what I do. So, and that goes with the teachings too, because it's just about finding your center. So as long as you have found your center, you're good. Like, you're on the right track. And that could be, if you feel at home with being an atheist, then that's your center. Like, it's just, I don't know, how I was raised, I guess. My mom is just traditional Native. So being a Wiccan growing up, I was kind of like on my own with learning it, but it has so many similarities between how that practice is and the Native traditions when it comes to like what you're using, how you're using it, that it just fits quite perfectly for me, so it's been good.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of the paranormal encounters that you had, your scariest ones and the ones that started you off. But what is your favorite encounter that you've had with spirits or interaction that you've had with spirits?
Oh, my favorite one is actually from the Hinsdale house, and it um, is just the biggest form of validation, I guess. Um, so I was sitting up in the main bedroom, up on the second floor, and I was facing the stairs. And for anybody who's been there, you can kind of see, like, looking at the stairs, you can kind of see the last two stairs going up. And because I love cats, I saw a cat go up into the Laura's room, which I don't like. Don't like Laura's room. There's just something. It's heavier in there. It's a little bit more negative, like, feeling. I don't like it in there. Um, so I saw this cat go up in there, and I didn't think spirit cat at first. I thought cat. I know what I saw. And so I brought it up to everybody that was sitting in there with me, and everybody said, no, there's no spirit cat, there's no living cat. But that didn't seem far-fetched to me, because we're out in the middle of the country, chipmunks wandering, why can't a cat, right? So I did the investigation thing, went in, looked everywhere, under Laura's bed, everywhere, and sure enough, there's no cat. So I said, okay, um, I'll concede with this. I'll just drop it. And I sat back down. About an hour or so goes by, and we decided to move on to downstairs. We turn on our flashlights, and right in the middle of the doorway where we would have kicked kicked it for sure, it was one of those like felt cat mouse toy things, just right there in the middle of the doorway. So that was like the biggest validation. The best part too was the fact that it was the guy that was like really being kind of like grumpy about it, like there's no cat. He was like, ew, what is that? And he like touched it with his foot, and I picked it up, and I'm like, that's a cat toy. But it was right there. We would have either stepped on it and crunched it, or we would have kicked it. So it was kind of cool. The weirdest validation, but it was like, hey, yeah, you did see me, here's this toy. So, and then come to find out that the Dandies did actually have cats, so it could have been one of theirs.
So was there something to make you think that there was cats, or like?
I saw what looked like a cat come up the stairs and go into Laura's room. So that's what that was the first thing that I saw. I didn't know that I probably could have assumed because it is an old farmhouse that there would probably be cats, but it hadn't crossed my mind. I was at a haunted location. I was there for the ghost. That's what my brain was focused on, and yeah, so that was just like the weirdest validation. The interesting thing is though, um, it could have been one of two things. It could have been a spirit cat, or it could have been a one of the pukwudgies that are known to be on the property. Pukwudgie is a elemental that likes to shapeshift into cats and into porcupines primarily. And they do also protect natives and native graves. So maybe it was that too. I didn't get to ask it, so I can't speak for it, but I just know that it definitely was something that was a cat.
I was under the impression, due to a TV series, that Pukwudgies were trolls.
They are kind of like a troll. Yeah, to describe them, I guess I would describe them as like a Native American Dobby from like Harry Potter. Um, but they're definitely they can be mean. They protect things, so you have to remember that whatever they perceive as a threat, they're attacking. So you might not think you're a threat, but that doesn't mean something else doesn't. Um, so there is that, but that's quite. I kind of put them in the category kind of like woodland fae type of creature, because behavior wise and everything, that's kind of how they act, is like that. Like fairies, people are so charmed by fairies, but they're super mean. They're not something you want to have around you. So yeah, they're kind of evil. Same thing with mermaids. You don't want
Yeah,
to meet a mermaid.
sirens and mermaids.
Yeah, they'll eat you, so you don't want that.
That brings me to my next question. Have you ever had any experiences with the Fae? And if so, how did you get rid of them?
I have actually had experiences with the Fae. I actually had to kind of like make friends with them, kind of, because we had just chopped down a tree and they were not happy about it. So I actually had to make it so that the tree was regrowing. My parents were not happy about that. It was like I don't know what kind of tree it was. It had like beans on it. So yeah, a bean tree maybe. I don't know. Um, but Spirit was like, look, this is what you're going to do. You're going to take the soil from the bottom of the tree and put it up inside the tree because it had like open rings on the inside of it because it was dying. And so I started doing that. And then it started to grow a whole new part of tree like in the center of it. And right after that, we stopped having a whole lot of like issues in the home. Like we would have like all the lights would just like go out like a blackout type of thing. We wouldn't be able to turn them back on even, going down to the box or anything. So they do that sort of thing. They're tricky, they'll play tricks on you. So um, just try to, if you do have fairies, try to make friends with them, try to keep that peace. Try not to build anything in the path of fairies because that's going to cause you a lot of issues. So I know that there's also, I read part of the lore is like you put a rusty iron nail in your coat pocket next to, and hang it next to your bed, and that's supposed to, for some reason, keep the fairies away. Um, that was like, it's an old lore from like a long, long time ago in like Ireland because they were having issues with fairies kidnapping children and then pretending to be the children, that type of thing. So a lot of people actually were murdered for being fairies. So a little weird lore tidbit there for you guys.
What advice do you have for people who want to strengthen their connection to spirit realms?
Um, well, first know what you're getting into. It can be a lot. I mean, it did give me a panic attack, so it's a lot, especially for somebody who's just starting out. Um, but it's something that everybody can do. Like, I'm not like special because I can do it, so it's something that we can all do. I'm sure scientifically there's some explanation somewhere for it. Um, do your research. That's going to be my biggest advice. Do your research. Make sure that you have a good support system with people, especially if you're going to start talking about it, because if you're getting a lot of negative feedback, you're not going to feel so good about doing it. Now if you've opened this up, it's very very hard to close certain doors. So make sure you know what you're doing. And yeah, just give it some time. It takes a lot of time, a lot of energy to do these things, and you have to be prepared. I have done readings for people where I've connected to their loved ones, and they're telling me and showing me how they committed suicide. That's a lot to take on. So you have to make sure you're prepared for that, because you're not in control of what spirit will and won't do. We don't control them. It's not a circus. That's actually one of the things that I do tell people, like during the investigations and stuff. If it's getting like kind of quiet, like people might be getting bored, but it's not a circus. I don't command the dead. Like, nobody does that. So if they want to talk, we can talk. If they don't, I that's up to them. It's kind of like if I just walked up to a random person and started talking to them, they can either walk away from me or talk to me or just stand there and be quiet. Like, it's just how we are. Just they're across the veil.
How do you deal with, or as a follow-up, how do you deal with skeptical may not like see?
So when people are super like skeptic, I just kind of let them be, kind of, especially at the house. Like, I know the house is going to show them something. A lot of the times, it's good to be a healthy skeptic. You don't want to believe everything that's out there. You have to consider the source. I get mass texts from people of pictures of orbs, and they've blown it up so like badly that it's like camo is what it looks like, and I'm supposed to see something in it, and I want to so badly for that person because they believe that there's something there, but I just can't. So I have to tell them, and I try to do it in a respectful way. I'm sorry, but this image is of poor quality. Like, it's inconclusive. So maybe there is something in there, but it's inconclusive. I can't say there is or isn't. So that's kind of how I handle it. If people are getting rude, I just kind of try to find something that they like and start talking about that and work it kind of into what we're doing. And then that way, it still connects everybody to it. I try to be engaging with everybody. So I guess just try to accommodate for that sort of thing. Make sure that they're, don't allow them to be kind of like a Debbie Downer, like, we don't need that, because then it ruins the experience for everybody, when people kind of act like that. But it's usually a guy, and they're usually really super tough, and then they get their name called out on the spirit box, and then they're a little less tough. So it happens. You just take it as it comes.
So a recent thing that's happened with the paranormal is the fact that people think that in order to tell if an orb is real, you have to look inside of the orb. My preference on it is if it is like reflecting light enough that it's almost pure white, then it's likely not dust. And the way that it moves can tell if it's not dust. but do you believe that there is something inside of an orb that would be able to tell?
I honestly don't do too much work with orbs. I don't give them too much of my time, just because my biggest thing that I'm working with right now is EMF, because I went down that rabbit hole way too far. So now that I have all this information, I just kind of, that's what I work with. But I know that a lot of people do find a lot of validation and stuff with orbs. I think if you're an orb, though, that is interacting and it seems to be kind of in an intelligent way, that's a little more something to it, you know? Like if there was no dust, like on the camera at all, you know, and it's very clear that there hasn't been anything, and then I said, "Spirit, come to me," and then right then and there's one dust orb, and that's the only time it happens, and it's a little weirder. But it's still, you know, with the paranormal, it could be just coincidence. We're all still learning, and it's very possible that we're looking at the wrong things, you know. So everything is possible, but not everything is probable, and that's what we really need to keep in mind.
Okay, so as a psychic medium, do you do services with that skill? Like, do you,
So I do, like sometimes I'll offer like the 3-card readings and stuff. Actually, just the other day did 10 free 3-card readings, and I do it randomly. I haven't done it a whole lot this year. This is actually the first time this year that I've done them, and it's just because COVID, all the energy and everything. I mean, it's taken a lot of energy. So that's a big thing too, of like knowing when your energy is good, it's not. So because I don't want to be bringing that into my readings, you know. So you want to make sure you're at your top, you're at your best when you do that sort of thing. But I do the readings. I there for a while was offering Reiki, but because of my native background, it's just Reiki. Reiki is perfectly fine. I applaud anybody for learning it and doing that. Being a healer is a wonderful thing, but because of my native background, going into shamanism, energy healing is much more my forte, I guess, because I don't need all the symbols and the words for it. Not that there is anything wrong with using the symbols and words, it's just something that I don't need. So those are two things that I do offer. I guess I do also offer the like I'll go in as an investigator and kind of assess situations, and I'll help them find, like, if they need like a cleansing and stuff, it's something that I know for sure that I can do, I'll help with. If it's something that I know I can't help with, there's no shame in the game of saying that. So make sure that, you know, you're always 100% certain, confident that you can do something, especially if it's a cleansing, because if you do it wrong, you're not certain, like, that's gonna bleed into your work and can cause, you know, things to escalate and be worse for that client. So just recently I had to tell somebody, look, this is who you need to contact, this is what they need to do, you know, let me know how this works. You know, I can be there that day that they do show up, but if I can't do it, I don't do it. So same thing with like the tarot readings. A lot of people do expect spirit communication during a tarot reading, and that's never a guarantee. Like I don't pretend that I'm talking to one of your loved ones during it. I'm not going to do that. So I'm very honest. Like if I'm doing a reading for somebody and I'm not getting anything from their mom and dad, you know, like I'm just going to say, I'm sorry, I'm not getting anything. But that's also a good thing, because you don't want spirit to have messages for you. But that doesn't mean that you're not going to get a tarot reading. There's a difference between tarot card reading and spirit communication. A lot of times it does get, like, it bleeds together, which is, again, perfectly fine. It happens sometimes with me too, but it's not 100% of the time. So.
What does it feel like when you are healing?
So the first thing that I'll notice is, like, there's like a temperature change, usually warmer, in my hands, and then it kind of feels like, I guess, kind of like a tingling sensation in my hands, almost like your hands are going numb, but they're not numb. And then like I start to actually feel it kind of like a wave, that kind of like soft, like pulse. And I know that it's actually going into whatever it is that I'm working with. So the energy healing doesn't always have to be like to a person. It can be to a situation. It can be to a plant, a person, a pet, whatever it is that needs healing, you can send that energy out too. It can just be even with like your rituals and stuff too. Like if you want to charge your crystals, you can certainly send it to that too, and to yourself. Like it's energy. It can go wherever is needed, and it cannot be used for like negative stuff unless you're like, I guess, never say never, but like if you're like real super dark and sending that intention out with it, maybe. But generally, and with Reiki, because I did go through the Reiki mastery and everything, like Reiki cannot be used to harm. You can't send out illness or anything with it. So if I'm sick and I'm sending somebody, some Reiki, I'm not sending them my sickness, or vice versa. If I'm healing somebody who's sick, I'm not going to get their sickness from it unless unless it's something that's contagious and I'm physically there with them. But if I'm sending distant Reiki or distant healing, no, it's not going to come get you. Like you'll be okay.
Our discussion with Kaycee Colburn continues in the next episode.